So now that the NHL draft is over and the majority of the bigger name free agents have signed, I'm going to be giving my off-season grades for all of the NHL teams, but if there is a lot of other moves that happen, throughout the summer after I make this video, I will probably do a part 2 before the regular season gets underway. I did this on Tier Maker, so I'm going to link it down in the description. This is one I made myself, so you guys can do it, and then take a picture of it and tweet at me. My Twitter is on the screen. I recommend you follow me there. But now let's jump right into it. So S tier basically is like a perfect off-season. I don't think I'm going to have any teams up there, and then you just have the standard grades A, B, C, D, E, and F, and let's just jump right into it, starting off with the Dallas Stars, and I'm going to give them a B tier. They didn't really lose anyone besides Matt Zuccarello, who was just a rental, but obviously they brought in the big fish, Joe Pavelski, who I think is going to be a very, very good piece for them, and they brought in Corey Perry, who, could potentially give them some depth scoring. So all in all, I think they had a pretty solid offseason. The Boston Bruins, I'm going to put them at C tier because they didn't really lose anyone too significant. Obviously Marcus Johansson and Nola Chari and guys like that, but they're not really going to put a damper on this team too much. They still have to sign McAvoy and Brandon Carlo, but just keeping this core group together, they're still going to be a very good team next year, so that's why I have them at the C tier. Next up, we have the Washington Capitals, and I think I'll put them with Boston because they didn't really do anything too significant, and they're most likely still going to be a very good team next year. They lost out on guys like Brett Connolly. They also lost out on Andre Burakovsky when they traded him away, but they just re-signed Jacob Vrana today, who had a breakout season, so I think all in all, they're still going to be very solid next year, and they're kind of similar with Boston in the fact that they had pretty quiet off seasons, but will still be very good teams next season. And next up, we have the New York Rangers, the team that signed the biggest fish out there, Artemi Panarin, making him the second highest paid player in the entire league. Obviously an overpayment, but he's going to be a very good piece to them. That's the only reason why I don't have them in the S tier. They also made some other moves, obviously acquiring Jacob Trouba, which I think is going to be a very, very good move, and then drafting Kaapo Kakko, who's probably going to come in and play a big role this season. So a very, very good offseason. Definitely an exciting time to be a fan of the New York Rangers, and they will be a very fun team to watch, and they definitely had a fantastic offseason. Next up, the Edmonton Oilers. This is a tough one. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to give them an F. They didn't really do anything. They re-signed Alex Chiasson, and now they have Mike Smith in goal. Okay, they didn't really get any better. They didn't really give Connor McDavid the help that he needs on the wing, and they really couldn't because they have some cap issues there, obviously with so much money tied up in Draisaitl and McDavid, and obviously that big Milan Lucic contract, looming over the team. They're going to have to get rid of that or find something to do there to just give them some flexibility. I think a lot of it relies on if some of these young players can come up and play a big role, and I think they can maybe go up a little bit depending on what happens with Jesse Puljujarvi this offseason, but for right now, I'm leaving Edmonton at the F spot. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they lost Sergei Bobrovsky, they lost Ryan Dzingel, they lost Matt Duchene, and they lost Artemi Panarin. But I'm going to put them in E. I'm not going to put them in F because some of that was just out of their control, but they did bring in Gustav Nyquist, and they still have some guys there like Pierre-Luc Dubois, Cam Atkinson, Josh Anderson, still have a very solid blue line, and obviously we're going to see what happens with Korpisalo as the #1 goalie there, but I don't think it was quite, a terrible offseason for them, but definitely wasn't good, so I'm going to have them at the E tier right now. Next up, we have the Detroit Red Wings, my favorite team. I'm not going to be biased here. I'm going to put them in the D tier. I wasn't really a fan of what we did. Obviously, we drafted Moritz Seider, which was kind of an off-the-board pick, and we're going to see how that plays out, so I can't really give them a good grade for drafting him just yet. And then, obviously, we signed Patrick Nemeth and Valtteri Filppula. Not a fan of the Patrick Nemeth contract at all, and Val Filppula, I think he can be a solid 3rd or 4th line center, but other than that, not really a fan of some of the moves Detroit made, but we didn't really do anything too drastically dumb, so I guess I'm okay with that. Just let the young guys get 1 year older and see how they play next year. So Detroit is going to be a D tier for me. The Los Angeles Kings, I think I'm going to put them in D tier as well. They're a team that is heading in a rebuilding direction. We're kind of quiet this offseason. They did do good at the draft with selecting Alex Turcotte, who I think is going to be a very good piece for their team, but it's kind of the same with Detroit. Just let the young guys get 1 year older and see what happens. So for right now, I have them in the D tier. The Vancouver Canucks, I'm actually going to put them in the B tier with the Dallas Stars. They got Michael Furland, and then obviously Tyler Myers is the big contract, and a lot of Canucks fans didn't like that, but me personally, this team is better now than they were last season, and I think that's all you can ask for, and they still have to sign Brock Besser and stuff like that. They still have the Louis Eriksson contract, and they could either go up or down depending on what happens throughout the remainder of the offseason, but so far, I would give them a B grade, and I think Canucks fans should be pretty happy. The Anaheim Ducks, this is an interesting one. They re-signed guys like Holzer and and obviously Ryan Miller. Didn't really do too much. They got Trevor Zegras at, I believe, the 9th overall pick, which is pretty good. So I think I'm going to put them in... No, I feel like they're kind of in the same boat here. Yeah, I think I'm going to put them in D tier. They bought out Corey Perry, which is nice to, move on from him. Let some of the young guys come in and fill out that lineup, but they didn't really do anything to make them too much better. They're a team that's probably heading in a rebuilding direction like Detroit and LA, so I have them in the D tier. Next up, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I'm going to put them in B tier with the Canucks and the Dallas Stars. They acquired Tyson Barrie. They got Kerfoot as well in that move. Tyson Barrie, probably a 1-year rental, but I think it is going to be worth it for that 1 year. He's going to make that blue line that much better. And then you got guys like Jason Spezza, Cody Ceci. I just like a lot of the moves that they made so far this offseason, and you never know. In the part 2, they could be up or down depending on what happens with Mitch Marner, but just looking forward into the future and just kind of guessing that Mitch Marner does re-sign and stay, I have them in the B tier right now. Next up, the Florida Panthers, another team that is going to be up in the A tier for me. In my opinion, they got the final piece that they needed to really take the leap and become a playoff team, and that is Sergei Bobrovsky. They also signed some depth pieces like Achari and then Connolly as well, and on the blue line they got Strawman. I just think they did a fantastic job, and I don't really have to do too much explaining there. That's why I have them in the A tier. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning, and this is probably going to be the same as the Caps and the Bruins. They're still going to be a very good team next year, and they didn't really do anything to hurt their lineup, and they didn't really do anything to improve. Maybe they'll miss Anton Strawman, but now I think Sergachev can just slot into that top 4 and, stop playing sheltered minutes, and, maybe he could be on pace for a breakout year. But I think they're still going to be very good, and they were kind of quiet this offseason, so that's why I have them at the C tier. Next up, we have the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm going to put them in the B tier. I'm a fan of the moves they made, getting Eric Howla, who I think is a very underrated piece. Signing Ryan Dzingel, I think he's going to fit fantastically with that forward crop. They matched the offer sheet that the Montreal Canadiens sent, which obviously they were going to do. The one bad thing that I didn't like is them not bringing back Curtis McElhinney, because I think him and Mrazek as the 1-2 really worked. And now, how is Mrazek going to fare as the number 1 there, without a guy like McElhinney behind him? We're going to have to wait and see, but I think it was a good offseason for them. Next up, the Winnipeg Jets. I'm going to put them down in D tier. They did lose a lot, and they still haven't signed Kyle Connor or Patrick Laine. They lost Sherrod. Obviously, they lost Brandon Tanev, who was a big depth piece for them. They lost Tyler Myers, and they didn't really add anything to replace those guys. So for right now, I have them in D tier. But the offseason isn't over. Like I said, they could move up or down. They're still going to be a very good team, but strictly basing it off their offseason so far, I have them down at D tier. The Minnesota Wild, I think I'm going to put them. I think I'm going to put them in D tier as well. They're a team that, in my opinion, should be heading in a rebuilding direction, but then they go out and sign a guy like Matt Zuccarello to a pretty lengthy and lucrative contract. So I don't really know how that is going to work out. Are they going to be a playoff team in the Western Conference? I would guess not, and I just feel like they should have done a better job, looking towards the future. They did re-sign Ryan Donato today, which is a smart move, but other than that, I just have to give them a D tier ranking for now. Next up, we have the Colorado Avalanche, and I'm teetering between A and B here for them. I think I'm going to put them in B tier, though. I think they were really smart with their cap space. Obviously, trading Tyson Barrie, who they knew was probably going to test unrestricted free agency, and they were probably going to have to overpay a hefty amount to bring him back. So I think it was smart that they shipped him out, and they got a guy like Nazem Kadri, who can be very good for them. They also got Bowen Byram. They also got guys like Andre Burakovsky, who's going to help the depth scoring. I'm just a big fan of all the moves that Colorado made so far this offseason, and obviously, like I said, they could go up or down, but for right now, I have them at B tier. The Montreal Canadiens, I think I'm going to put them at the C tier. I wouldn't say it was a bad offseason for them, but then I wouldn't say it was good as well. They failed on their offer sheet at 10-4 Sebastian Aho. They did bring in a guy like Ben Sherrod, who I think is going to be a very good piece there. Obviously, getting Cole Caulfield at 15th overall in the draft, in my opinion, is a steal, so that makes it a good offseason in its own right. But I still think they're going to be a pretty solid team next year, but they didn't really do anything too significant to really make me think they had a bad or good offseason. Next up is the New York Islanders, and I think I'm actually going to put them at the D tier just because I don't know what's going to happen with the situation in goal. They lost Robin Lehner, and they brought in Semyon Varlamov, and as of right now, I think Robin Lehner is the better goaltender. They could have been, kind of down here if they lost a guy like Anders Lee, but they did bring him back, which is good for them, but I'm just not a fan of what happened with their goaltending situation, so for right now, I have them at the D tier. Alright, I'm going to try to go a little bit quicker here because this will be a long video, but we have the San Jose Sharks, and I'm going to put them at C tier. I like a lot of their moves, but I think there is going to be some growing pains there, and I definitely definitely think they are going to miss a guy like Joe Pavelski. They re-signed Erik Karlsson, which is good, bringing back one of the best defensemen in the league. They re-signed Timo Meier to a very team-friendly contract, and obviously Kevin Labanc signed to a very, very team-friendly contract, the 1-year, $1 million move. They still have to bring back Joe Thornton, which I think will get eventually done, and then if Marleau is officially bought out, they'll probably bring him back as well. So I don't think they're done making moves yet. Like I said, for a lot of these teams, they could go up or down, but for right now, I have them at C tier, but it's kind of like a C+. I just really don't like the fact that they lost Joe Pavelski. Next up, the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm going to put them in B tier. I like what they did. I think they upgraded in goals significantly now with Robin Lehner, and if he can replicate the season he had with the Islanders and do that for the Chicago Blackhawks, there's a very, very strong chance that Chicago, makes that jump right back into the playoffs and becomes a very, very good team. So I like what they did. Obviously, they made a trade today. I already made a video on that. Artem Anisimov for Zach Smith. So it's going to be interesting to see how Zach Smith plays out there. They made the Henry Jokiharju trade where they acquired Alex Nylander. And that is a move which kind of makes me want to put them down in C tier because I'm not too big of a fan of it. So if there was a C+ tier, I'd probably have Chicago in it, but I think it's, more towards B. So that's where I'm going to put them for now. The New Jersey Devils, A tier. Jack Hughes, PK Subban, Wayne Simmons. I just like a lot of their moves, and I think they're a very good team now. Definitely a lot better than they were last year. I think the last missing piece now to make it a good offseason for them, or a perfect offseason, maybe up there in S tier, is if they could bring back Taylor Hall. But obviously, he hasn't signed an extension just yet. He will be a free agent next summer, so we're going to have to see how that plays out. But obviously, a fantastic offseason for them. The Pittsburgh Penguins. Honestly, I think I'm going to put them in D tier, but if there was a D+, I'd probably put them there. The Phil Kessel trade to me is just super interesting. I don't quite know how Alex Galchenyuk is going to work out there. I think a lot of people are going to pick Pittsburgh to potentially fall out of the playoffs in the Metro Division. So I just think it's going to be tough, but obviously they could prove me wrong and they couldn't be done. They might not be done making a lot of moves. And another reason why they're in D tier is because that Brandon Tanev contract is just super weird. You usually don't see bottom 6 guys getting that long of term and that much money. So I think Pittsburgh had a D offseason. But if all these moves work out, they definitely, could go up there around C or B. But for right now, I have them at the D tier. And now the Calgary Flames, I think C tier for them. Now instead of Mike Smith in goal with Riddick, they have Cam Talbot. How is that going to work out? I'm honestly not quite sure, but they're still going to be a very good team. Had a relatively quiet offseason, so that's why I have them in the C tier. The Arizona Coyotes, B tier 100%. Bring in Phil Kessel, ticket sales go up, and obviously I think it's going to be an exciting year for them. They lacked goal scoring last year, and they brought in a guy who's capable of putting up a point per game. He can elevate other play of guys like Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller. I think they're in for an exciting year, so that's why I have them at the B tier. I'm a fan of their moves. Philadelphia, honestly, I'm teetering between C and D here. They didn't really make anything, too significant. I'm going to put them at D tier because I feel like they should have done more to try to improve this team and make a push for the playoffs, because you have guys like Giroux, Voracek, Carter Hart's going to be the starter there next year, and that could be, a move that goes under the radar. Not even really a move, just like an upgrade or a promotion now that he's going to be the starter. So it's going to be weird to see what happens in Philadelphia. I feel like they are a wildcard team and very tough to predict, so I think I'm going to have them in the D tier. The Vegas Golden Knights, I think I'm going to put them in the C tier. They were able to bring back William Karlsson. They were a team that was in a cap crunch big time, and I think they did a pretty good job of unloading some salary with guys like Eric Howla and stuff like that. So for that reason, I have them at C tier. Also traded away Colin Miller. I forgot to mention that. So I think it was a decent offseason for them. They're still going to be a very good team, so that's why I have them at C tier. The St. Louis Blues, I'm honestly going to put them in B tier strictly because they brought back the core of that team that just won a Stanley Cup, and that ultimately makes you a contender and, one of the favorites to win it again next season. I think they signed Jordan Binnington to a very smart contract, kind of a bridge deal, and I think, it's more of a prove-it contract for him. I just like what they did in terms of staying pat, and that's why I have them at the B tier. The Ottawa Senators, I'm going to put them at E tier. They couldn't really do much. They got a lot of guys from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Ryan Hainsey, Connor Brown, Nikita Zaitsev, and stuff like that. They obviously just traded away Zach Smith and got Anisimov today. So there isn't really much they could do except hope some of the youth takes over and, really leads them in the right direction. So for that reason, I have them at the E tier. The Buffalo Sabres, I think, quietly had a solid offseason getting Henry Jokiharju. They signed Johansson from free agency, and they also got Colin Miller. I think they really took steps in the right direction to upgrade that blue line, which they really needed to do. They also drafted Dylan Cousins, which I think was a pretty smart move there for them, and hopefully he can be something good there, and I just like a lot of the moves that they made. And now lastly, finishing out the video with the Nashville Predators, I think I'm going to put them in B tier as well. They signed Matt Duchene, traded away PK Subban, unloaded his entire contract, which is a very smart move there. It gives some more flexibility for them because they do have a couple unrestricted free agents next summer, but I just think getting Matt Duchene, a big contract, but it is a guy who can really solidify that center core with guys like Johansson and Duchene and Kyle Turris now. So I like their moves. That's why I have them at the B tier. So overall, this is my list right now. I'm going to revise a little bit, see if I want to change anything, and then we'll come back and close out the video. So I think that is going to wrap up the video. I'm not going to make any changes. I like how my grading is right now. Obviously, you guys don't have to agree. This is all subjective, and like I said, I will link it down in the description so you guys can do it as well. Take a picture of it and then tweet at me. So I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. Like I said, I might do a part 2 if a lot of other moves happen throughout the offseason. And with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.